Welcome to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. I'm Richie. I'm going to be your host. Throughout the series, we're going to talk to a range of different people who will give you tools and tips to help manage your recovery. The podcast itself is being brought to you by Epic Restart Foundation, who are a national charity who support people to rebuild a positive life after gambling harm. So today on the Recovery Toolkit podcast, we're joined by Jo. Jo is one of our coaches at Epic Restart Foundation, so it's great to have you on the podcast, Jo, eventually. What I want to start with you is, how did you get into recovery? Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, basically, I went through Gordon Moody. I looked online actually because I didn't know who to reach out to, because I thought I was the only person that had a gambling addiction, because I didn't even know it was a thing, if I'm honest. I looked online and come across Gordon Moody, and they did a women's only retreat and counselling program. And so I applied, and they did an assessment on me, and then I went and did their program. We went for, I think it was like 4 nights, and we did like an intense course. And it was nice to be around other people, other women that had, suffered similar, stories. We learned about our addiction and, ways of, coping strategies and stuff like that. And then afterwards, we went home and we did counselling. And then we had to go back for a second part of the retreat and counselling program. I come out of there and I was like, yes, I'm cool, I'm good, I know what I've got to do. I was all like really, high. And then one day I was drying my hair and like I noticed a bald patch, and I said to my mum, like, what is this? Like, and she goes, oh, you've got a bald patch. And I was like, oh my God, like that was like my worst fear, my hair falling out. So I did go to the doctors, and they said that it was alopecia, which was triggered by stress, which was obviously from my gambling. And then I had to have treatment on my head. I shaved my hair in the end, and that was like the worst feeling I could ever have imagined, really, because I didn't know how to. I always had low self-esteem and, confidence anyway. But shaving my hair, I never felt anything like it. So I ended up relapsing because I had all these emotions, and I, obviously didn't learn about that. I had all these emotions, and I just thought, I can't cope with this. So I just ended up gambling again, and got myself into more debt. Just started isolating, lying, being manipulative again. Just was a horrible person, really.
So if we go back a little bit, Jo, getting into Gordon Moody, what was the underlying reason, do you think, you were gambling at that point?
I think it was, I know it was because I'd always struggled in my life dealing with any emotion, like whether it was happiness, sadness, anger. I always thought it was wrong. I was always embarrassed. I never felt good enough. I have autism as well, and I think I've never really understood myself as a person, and that it's okay to feel these emotions and, look after myself, because I've always put everyone else before me. So, I think it was just my escape from life and everything that comes with it, like emotions and,
Yeah, so went into Gordon Moody, done the retreat and counselling. How long was that in total? That whole process that you went through with Gordon Moody?
It was with Gordon Moody, I think it was like a 12-week program.
Right. Good. And then you came home and abstinent for a while?
Yeah.
Before the hair started falling out. So how long was it that you were in recovery and being abstinent at that point? I
think it was probably about 6 months all in all. Yeah. And then obviously, because I had to, go to the doctors and get treatment for my hair as well. It was over a period of time, but then when I actually shaved my hair off, I think that was when I just couldn't cope, because when I shaved my head, I made the decision, right, I can either stay in and hide away, or I can just go into a shop and kind of see their reaction. So that's what I did. I did my hair and not my hair, but my makeup. And then I went into a shop, and the guy in there, he wasn't really bothered. It was more about me. I was bothered. And then I was in a supermarket one day, and some little girl said to her mum, oh, look, that girl's got no hair. And I just couldn't cope with that, really. I was just like, oh, my gosh. So, yeah, I just got depressed and, just felt rubbish.
So the first time you went at Gordon Moody, you were saying like low self-esteem, low confidence. I imagine that all came back around again at this point in your life when you're, struggling to deal with them emotions. What were some of the internal feelings that were going on for you at that point of your life, when you just shaved your hair off and back in recovery but starting to struggle again?
I think I need some sort of escape. I can't cope with these feelings. I don't want to deal with any of these feelings. I just need to hide away in something. And obviously, I already knew that gambling felt that was the right place for me to hide. Yeah. I know deep down I shouldn't have done that, because obviously it didn't get me anywhere the first time. But I kind of use it as a learning, tool now. Like, it's happened, and I don't want to go back there again. So I can look back and think, okay, so what do I need to do to deal with this situation going forward?
Yeah, definitely. I think everybody looks at gambling and thinks, oh, it's like a financial thing, or, people want money, or they're greedy and that sort of stuff. And I think what you've just said there, basically, for me, the way I'm summing that up is you couldn't manage your feelings and emotions, and that was your escape. So that was your way of dealing with life at that time. Yeah. Obviously you lapsed due to the stress that was causing your hair to fall out, and you just went back to what you knew. You hadn't inputted any new coping strategies or any new ways of dealing, and you just went back to what you knew. And why did you go back to what you knew? Because you knew it would work. You knew it would change the way you felt. So that's an emotional thing, isn't it? It's about feelings, emotions, it's about behaviours, and knowing that in the first instance, it's going to help you. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand about addiction is you get something from it. Doesn't matter whether it's a substance, it's a behaviour, it's alcohol, it's drugs. You get something from it. That's why you do it. And once I was able to understand that, it massively changed my perception on what I have to do now. I can either take the easy route, or I can go down a different route and start learning more about myself and how I can cope. And I think after that lapse, Jo, what happened after that lapse? You tell us what happened after that lapse.
Yeah, after that, that went on for a good 6 months or so. I got into a really bad place again. I didn't want to be alive anymore, got into more debt. And I was quite frightened about reaching back out to Gordon Moody, because I thought, they're going to think I'm ungrateful, or, I haven't bothered trying, or, I just had all these thoughts in my head. But really, I didn't have any other way. I had to reach back out to them, because I could tell that I was getting into a really dark place, and, I didn't want to be there. So I did reach back out, and, they said they didn't judge me at all. They welcomed me back and put me through the program again. And this time round was different. I think I was ready to change. Do you know what I mean? Change the way I dealt with things, change the way I felt about things, and find better coping strategies. But this time round, afterwards, they referred me on to Epic Restart Foundation, which I didn't have the first time. And it was at Epic, where I really built my confidence and my self-worth, and learned all those coping strategies, and, really built myself up.
Yeah, so let's go into that a little bit. So second time in Gordon Moody, was it retreat and counselling again?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, and something felt different for you. Yeah. And I always say to people, like, was that the moment that you truly surrendered? Like, that's it, I've had enough of having enough. That's what a lot of people say to us. At that point, when you left Gordon Moody this time, what was different? Just at that moment when you left Gordon Moody, what was different to the first time you left, do you think?
I think I had to change my circumstances at home. I wasn't in a particularly good relationship at the time, and I feel that was holding me back a lot. So circumstances changed at home. I knew I had to put more work into myself and my recovery. I had to, make an effort. Because I think the first time round I thought, okay, I've gone through treatment, everything's going to be fine because, it's like you go to the doctors.
I'm fixed.
Yeah, I'm fixed pretty much. But no, I was wrong. And I learnt the difficult way, but I've learnt from it.
Yeah.
And, I don't beat myself up over it because it had to happen for me to get to where I am now.
Yeah, and that's part of the journey, isn't it? And everybody's journey is slightly different, Jo, and that's what I love about recovery. People can say this is the best way, that's the best way, but actually it's the way that works for you, and relapse is part of people's journey. Stress is part of people's journey. Having to deal with life is basically the journey for me. How do I deal with life in a better way, in a less destructive way than I have done in the past? When you joined Epic Restart Foundation, and obviously this podcast is, run by Epic Restart Foundation. We both work for Epic Restart Foundation, so we know what we do inside out. But for those who are listening, tell us your experience of Epic Restart Foundation. So what were you told about it before you joined?
I was told that I would learn how to build a positive life after gambling harm. And my health and well-being would improve, and my self-confidence and my self-worth would, I would get better at managing those. And I'll be honest, it's true. When I came through the program, I had no confidence whatsoever. I was scared. I don't know. I just wasn't who I am now. And I had to push myself to come on the in-person events because I was so frightened. And I think on one of them, I was the only girl as well. So that made me feel even more uncomfortable. But actually, it was a really, really good day. And I remember on one of the workshops, Building Better Lives one, Brad's one, that made me think about my job. I was putting all my effort into my job at the time, not at Epic, and not looking after myself at all. I'd finish work and be so exhausted mentally and physically, and I just wasn't happy there. And he got me thinking about, is this really what I want to do? And so, yeah, I decided to leave that job because the money wasn't worth the unhappiness.
Yeah. So let's just take you back two or three steps. You joined Epic. What happened then? So I know you've just mentioned a few events and stuff, but when you first joined, what happened? Tell us about the process you went through.
Well, you were allocated as my mentor, and at first I was a bit like, I don't know if this is going to be right for me, chatting to someone every other week. You know what I mean? I did. Because, sometimes when you've had treatment and you feel like you're constantly talking to someone about the same things, and I didn't want to keep going over it, but actually it wasn't like that at all. What I liked about the mentoring is you held me accountable for what I was going to do, what I'd said I was going to do, and that would actually push me to do it. Because otherwise I wouldn't have bothered doing any of it.
Yeah. And I think that's important for people to hear. There's multiple pathways to recovery. There's loads of ways people can get into recovery. They can get treatment, they can get support, they can get peer support. But at Epic, what we try to do is we try to coach people. We try to coach people out of a cycle of addiction and into a cycle of recovery, into a cycle of wellness, a place of wellness. And by asking the right questions, by holding people accountable, by setting some goals, we can help people achieve outcomes. And that's what you done, really, wasn't it? I always remember the first session. Jo, do you want to put your camera on, Jo? No, it's all right. I was like, all right, this is going to be a bit of a difficult one. But you didn't, did you? You didn't want to put your camera on the first session. And to see you now sat here on a podcast that's going to go out on on YouTube and across social media and all that sort of stuff, they're like, that's a true testament to yourself, how the journey you've been on, you know. So you get a mentor, we start having some sessions, and then you find out there's opportunities to go on events. Tell us about the events you went on. So you've mentioned Brad's and how that kind of Building Better Lives workshop with Brad Waldron kind of made you think about, what do I want from life? You know, is this the job for me? Is this not the job for me? What else? What other events did you do?
I did Plus 1%. That still is my favourite one because, you know, I've gone on about this tree situation for so many times. So basically,
tell us about the tree.
So we had to climb a tree, and it wasn't just a little tree; it was a big tree, right? It was like scarily high. So I got as far as I could go, and then I looked down, and I was like, "No, I literally can't go any further. I'm petrified now. I shouldn't have looked down, but I did." And one of the coaches there, she said to me, like, "Do you think you could go any higher?" And I was like, "No way, absolutely not." But she continued to kind of encourage me and made me feel that I could do it. So I did it. I went up a little bit further. I was still scared, but from that moment, something changed in me. Like, I feel that even if I'm scared to do something, it doesn't mean I can't do it. And I use that in my head whenever I'm frightened of anything now. Like, you know, I've done so many things, like, you know, talking on podcasts or, you know, doing some filming for something else. And I always think to myself, my first thoughts are, oh, I can't do this. I'm going to be rubbish. I'm not good enough or whatever. And then that moment on that tree always comes into my head, and it just makes me feel really proud.
Yeah, and it became a bit of a thing between us, didn't it? If I can climb the tree, I can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, you know, you've took courage, but what you've done is you've built evidence, you know, and I use this term all the time: build the evidence, build the evidence, build the evidence. Once you start building the evidence, your confidence improves, you know, you start taking the chance to do other things, you start putting yourself out there more. And that's what's happened with yourself, isn't it? You've just went, well, I'm going to give it a go. And that takes courage. That's not always easy. What else happened on those events that was like catalyst for you to kick on in your recovery, do you think? What things did you get from it?
Definitely like building those connections with other people, because I'm the type of person, I just keep myself to myself. But on the events and stuff, talking to like-minded people who aren't going to judge you was really nice. Like, because obviously I struggle with my self-esteem and stuff. But nobody judged me at all. Nobody cared if I had hair or not. I was still treated equally, and it was really nice. They liked me for me.
Yeah, I love that. So once you've been on those events, come back to life, the job that you were in. You've already mentioned you kind of decided that wasn't for you. What was going on for you then? What sort of things happened for you in your recovery at that point?
Well, I don't know what you mean.
So once we got into, you've been to some of the events, and like in your head you were saying, I don't know if this job's for me anymore. Like, what did you start doing then? What was going on for you at work, and what was going on for you at home, and what else did you start looking to do?
Oh, well, with the job situation, I knew it was making me unhappy. So I really thought about what I need to do here, because, you know, I'm doing all this work in my recovery, learning all these new tools and coping strategies, but my job was still making me unhappy, and I don't think it was ever going to change. So I just made a decision to not do it anymore. Was it wise? I don't know, but it's paid off for me now. I had to take that risk, to be honest, for me to truly be happy. I also looked at doing new hobbies. Like I started doing aquafit. I did some body pump. I tried every little hobby that going, like cross stitching. I even did woodwork at one point, knitting. I just tried anything really, because I thought, well, I need to find what I enjoy and what I'm good at again. I also used to do a lot of singing, I still haven't properly got back into it, but I have put 2 videos out there now. So that's an improvement.
Yeah, and this is one of the big things we said, wasn't it? You said, I want to sing on the karaoke. I was like, well, I've seen you do some TikTok. So when are you going to put a song on TikTok? And like you say, there's a few out there now, isn't there? So again, it's having the courage to do it, isn't it? I think what I heard there, though, Jo, was I don't know who I am, but I want to find out. And to find out, you've got to go and try stuff, haven't you? So many people that we speak to in our program at Epic Restart Foundation, they'll say, well, what should I go and do? I'm like, well, I don't know. What do you like, And that's the whole part, isn't it? It's about how can we help and facilitate them to go and have the courage to try something new. And you said there yourself, you tried loads of stuff. Which of the stuff that you tried stuck? What's stuck now, a few years on?
Well, I still like doing body pump. Do I do it all the time? Absolutely not. I have to push myself because I'm only human. But I do like walking. That's one of the things I like to do. Sometimes I can't be bothered to do it, I'll be honest. But I have to kind of push myself to do these things because no one else is going to do it for me, are they?
Yeah, no, definitely. So your recovery's moving on now. You're trying all these new things. The job is still hanging in the balance a little bit. And then you went and done like period course. Is that right? With Bet No More?
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what period was and what you took from doing the period course.
I think doing peer aid was really, really good for me. I didn't think I was capable of passing it because I'm not very good learning on paper. I learned doing things, but they helped me get through it. And, I passed, and I did only have one peer, but it was good for me really because I know that I'm capable of supporting other people, and I already know about what I need to know about to support someone else. Do you know what I mean? Because I've experienced it.
Yeah.
And that built my confidence up no end as well.
What was some of the stuff you learnt on the period course? Can you remember some of that stuff or not? Or how did it kind of help you?
I learned about, motivational interviewing, safeguarding, other blockers that I didn't know about. But yeah, there was loads of different things. And sometimes I still have a look at the training now just to, refresh my mind.
Yeah, and I mean, I've done it as well. And I thought it was a really good entry-level course into helping somebody. It helps you facilitate a conversation. It helps you ask questions. It helps you, just move somebody forward in their recovery journey, doesn't it? So, I think it's a great place to start. And anybody who is in recovery from gambling and harm and is looking to go and help and support people, I think that's a really good place to start, And if I'm honest, when we were looking to employ somebody, you were the one that got the job in the end, but it was something that we looked to see. Has people put themselves out there to learn, develop, improve, help other people, volunteer? So all of them things worked in your favour, and helped you on that journey. Once you'd finished period course, you said, I got one peer. What was that about? What does that mean? So doing the period course is about moving on to helping people. What did that look like?
So it's just literally a conversation with a peer about where they are in their journey, offering some support and, guidance on where they might get help or what blockers they can use. It's just, one-on-one support, not like counselling or nothing because that's not what a peer is. But, yeah, it was just being there for them.
Yeah, and it's generally somebody that's newer into recovery, somebody that's, just maybe is out of treatment or just, looking for that additional support, and then they get help from a volunteer with lived experience who can help them move forward in their journey. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Spot on, good. After that, well, not after that, but whilst doing that, a job came up. Tell us about how you got into Epic Restart Foundation. What was that like?
Well, I saw the email come through about the job role, and I said to my mum at the time, I need to get that job. That is so what I want to do. Because obviously when I was going through the program, I did think in my mind, I would love to help support other people and use my experience for good. Because I've always known that I want to help others, but I never knew doing what, you know what I mean? And I saw the job come out and I was like, I have to get that. So I literally went out and I got it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that I went out and got it. That's what you wanted, wasn't it? So you'd set your mind on it, and actually you come with a lot of experience, your own lived experience, but also the volunteering a period and all the rest of it, and that helped you, be successful in getting the job. Since getting the job, where's Jo now? Tell us a little bit about your journey since you started working at Epic, and what is it that you do now to look after yourself?
Well, I have to, sometimes, because obviously we work from home, so we have to make sure that we're looking after ourselves. And sometimes I forget to, but the good thing is I have more self-awareness now. So I go out and I walk. I do that every day because sometimes you do get cabin fever being stuck at home, don't you? So yeah, I go walking and I talk a lot to people around me about how I'm feeling, or, you know what I mean? Because before I'd just keep everything to myself and I'd just suffer in silence. But now I'm quite open about everything. I have actually recently just started writing things down. Like I've started previously journaling, but I just never never bothered carrying on doing it. But I have because I've had a bit of stress recently. I've started to write things down now, and I do find it really useful.
Yeah. So how does it help you? How does writing stuff down help you?
I think it just makes me reflect on what's actually going on, and get it out of my head and put it on the paper and see it for what it is, because my mind catastrophizes everything, like many people's. Yeah. But when it's right in front of you, you can see what it is really. And 9 times out of 10, it's myself telling myself stories.
Yeah, cool story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you are writing stuff down now, not for other reason than it's helping you. I say to some people, try journaling. It's not for me. That's fine. That's cool. It wasn't for you at one point, was it? But actually now it's become part of something you do in your recovery. What's it like supporting people in recovery all the time? How does it affect you? What goes on for you? Does it affect you in a negative way, a positive way? Does it help you? Does it hinder you? Tell us a little bit about that for yourself. It
helps me in a really positive way, actually. Like, I'm quite good at separating my feelings from, when I'm supporting others. But it makes me feel so good. It reminds me, that I'm doing well myself. And it reminds me where I was as well. So it keeps me strong. I always like supporting other people if I can in any way, not just with, the mentoring.
Yeah, and obviously now that you're working at Epic Restart Foundation, you get the opportunity to go back on them events that helped you. What's it like doing them events again?
I love it. Honestly, it's so nice. It's good for me, like as in it refreshes me on what, all the strategies and stuff and the information. But it's also lovely to see the delegates on the event and watching them change throughout the few days. It makes me feel really proud.
Yeah, and a lot of people always say to me, "Oh, do you not get sick of doing them events?" I'm like, no, definitely not. Like you say, they're just a refresh, isn't it? It's just a recap, constant recap of positivity. The coaches we work with, the content that's on the events. It's all about being a better version of yourself, really, and just to have that over and over again, it really cements, new ways of living, new habits, new things that you need to try. And every time you go on an event, or every time I go on an event, I'm in a different place. Therefore, I see the event slightly different. So I just take that little bit extra each time, or something a little bit different from it. And I love that. So you've been on these events a few times now. What's the last event we went on? What was the one thing you took away from that event?
the resilience one. Sorry. Well, for me, I had to. There was one of the things that we did in there that I was absolutely dreading, so I made myself do it. And can I say what it is? Yeah. We had to go in this little tunnel thing, this cave, and it was so tight and claustrophobic. That was the one thing I did not want to do. So I made myself do it because I know that if I want to push myself, I have to push myself out of the comfort zone. And we learned about breathing techniques and, calming yourself down and dealing with that fight or flight response. So I put that into practice when we were in there, and I feel good about doing that, to be honest.
Yeah, is this another tree moment?
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's important that you experience those feelings, isn't it? And then learn how to manage them and, turn your nervous system from being, in a state of heightened state into a more relaxed state. Because in active addiction, we're just very reactive, aren't we? We just react all the time. Whereas actually, if we can manage to slow down, whether that's through breathing, meditation, mindfulness, we can just slow down our nervous system. We get to respond. And I think that's the biggest thing for people in recovery is, how do I learn to respond rather than react? And once I can start to do that, I've started to have a chance, I believe anyway. What's next for Jo? Where does Jo see the future going, or what would Jo like to happen? It doesn't have to be work related, just Jo in general, Jo in recovery. What's going on for Jo at the minute?
Well, I do have my own place now, so that was previously my next goal. So I'm living on my own and with my partner, and it's amazing. Next for me is I just want to continue with what I'm doing, keep pushing myself, building my confidence, because I still struggle with my self-esteem and stuff. So anything I do with Epic Restart Foundation, it helps me massively. I just want to keep growing and be happy, and I don't really know exactly what, but I know I don't want to stay in the same position. I want to keep growing. So, and for once in my life, I can say I'm actually proud of myself. I've never been proud of myself before, but I am now.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to do, isn't it? Because, like you said, low self-esteem, low confidence, no self-worth, all of them things you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, they stop you from being proud of yourself, don't they? They stop you from even just giving yourself praise or accepting, encouragement or praise from other people. But to be able to sit there and go, actually, I'm proud of myself, like, that's massive progress, just to be able to sit there and do that. From Jo, like I said earlier, from session 1, Jo not turning the camera on, to now session, I don't know what it would be, but it's years later, Jo's sitting there on a podcast going, I'm proud of myself. How do you feel when you say that?
Amazing. I've always thought that I would never go anywhere in life. I didn't think I even belonged on this planet. You know what I mean? And now I feel I'm in a place where I do belong, and I am proud, and I deserve to be happy, and it's really nice. And sometimes I have to stop and think and just remind myself of it, because it's just, wow, I'm proud.
Class. I love it. I'm proud of you as well.
Thank you.
Something we always ask everybody on this podcast is, what's 3 to 5 things that you have in your toolkit now that serve you well? And I know we've touched on them a little bit, but for those people out there listening, if they were to say, Jo, what's the things that really keep you well? What would you say it is now?
My main one is talking to people around me, not keeping things to myself if I'm struggling, reaching out to, I literally tell everyone about how I'm feeling now, because I don't want to go back to how I was, and dealing with things in an unhealthy way. So I find talking very helpful for me. I like to walk and clear my head, like just change my environment, just get out. Can
we go back to talking?
Yeah.
How hard was that for you?
Very hard. very, very hard, because I've never been a talker, especially about my feelings. Like, I could talk about something, but not about me and my emotions or how I was feeling.
Yeah, and I think that's important for people to hear, because you're sitting there going, talking's really important to us, and that's one of my tools in my toolbox. And people will be going, there's no chance I can do that, and that's what I was like as well. But you've just got to start, haven't you? Start talking and sharing little bits.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find the right people to talk to?
Well, I've always had, like, my family are really close. We are always close. So I think I just I knew they were there. It's just me that was stopping myself from talking.
Yeah.
And I do have a couple of close friends that I talk to as well now. And obviously I've got you guys at Epic. So I feel really lucky to have good support around me.
How important is support?
So important. So important. Like, I always used to think that I could cope with everything on my own and manage situations by myself, but honestly, I couldn't.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think in active addiction, we isolate ourselves, don't we? And we cut off the support, and we move away from friends, family, all of that sort of stuff. Or, we might betrayed them or lost trust or whatever. So to come into recovery, it's hard to find that support again, isn't it? It's hard to find those people that you can trust, and it's hard to find that support network. And I think that's something that we try to do with Epic Restart Foundation, is create a community of like-minded people where people can connect and come together and share experiences, but also form friendships. Some of my strongest friendships have come from people in recovery, have come from, this gambling harm space. And I think that's important, that people know that even if you don't have support today, if you are willing and put yourself out there and connect with the right types of people, you've got a chance. And I think that's really important for people to hear. So talking and having support is in your toolbox. You mentioned walking. Mm-hmm. What would be the third thing?
Well, I've just, like, as I said earlier, I've just started journaling again. So I'm finding it's really useful, because I have done it in the past when I was younger, and I loved reading and looking back at who I was then and where I am now. I'm finding it really useful at the moment, because I need to get stuff out of my head and putting it on the paper and, recognizing what's going on. Yeah.
And building the evidence again, I go back to that, build the evidence. If you put it on paper, and you write it in a journal, you can create a whole book of evidence that I'm doing well, and if I was to look back in your journey, Jo, over the past, I don't know, maybe 2 years now since you started engaged with us. I know you've just passed a year working with Epic Restart Foundation, so well done for that.
Thanks.
If I was to look at your full journey since I've known you, there's so much evidence. There's so much evidence that you're trying to be a better version of yourself. There's so much evidence that your confidence grew. There's so much evidence that your self-esteem grew. There's so much evidence that you're happier and more content in yourself, and I just hope you recognize that, because a lot of us as in us in recovery, struggle to recognize it sometimes, struggle to give ourselves the pat on the back. And I know you've just said, I'm proud of myself, but really go back and have a real look at everything you've achieved in 2 years, because I think it's quite phenomenal. And if I'm honest, you just offer hope and inspiration to other people who might not be as far down the road, or might even be ahead of you in terms of how long they've been in recovery, but they might not have done the work that you've done. And I think that's something you really need to be proud of yourself, is I've seen Jo do the work, and that's why you sit there in front of me today. That's why you're the person you are now, and that's why you've moved on so much in your recovery. Something I've never asked anybody else, Jo, what's the one thing that you would tell your younger self, knowing what you know now?
I would tell my younger self, it's okay to be you. Make sure you look after yourself first, and reach out to people, because it's okay. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel angry. It's okay to, feel lost. But reach out because you're not on your own.
Yeah, I love that. And the fact that you just said it's okay to feel sad, it's okay to feel lonely, it's okay to feel all of them emotions. Yet when we first started the conversation at the beginning, what was Jo running away from?
All of those things.
All of those emotions, you know. So I love how we've went full circle, and I love how we've got back to this point. But Jo, it's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast. I think it's a really valuable conversation. And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing because it's amazing to witness and amazing to see.
Thanks, Richie.
Thanks for listening to the Recovery Toolkit podcast. If you took something positive from it, then why not subscribe? If you or somebody you know has been suffering gambling-related harm, why not head over to our website where you can join our community? The link is in the show notes.